Hi everyone, it's me here again, and just want to say thank you for all the comments that I got on my last video, and I got a lot of reactions from friends and family, and so many people calling me, telling me about what happened, why did I suddenly change, and what's the next thing, what are my reasons, right? Well, at the end of the day, it's a video or two videos cannot convey the reasons why I left, why I decided to leave Christianity, or why I I suddenly think I am not convinced about the existence of any God for now, right? So yeah, and what I'll do is in my subsequent videos, as I discuss several topics, I'll try to bring out some of the reasons why I'm not convinced of any God, right? So yeah, um, from the comments that I got in the last video, I actually wanted to do something on one of the comments, but then I changed my mind because there's like another thing that came up, which is the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. It's a massive denomination in Nigeria that has millions of followers. Dear General Overseer made a statement several years ago about if you don't pay your tithe, then you are not going to make heaven. So, and then years later, he then he uttered an apology like last week, and then everybody has been talking about the apology. For me, I have a lot of things to say. The first thing is, when men of God make these kind of statements at that point in time, and then they feel sorry later, years later, at that point in time, who was speaking through them? You know, you really have to ask yourself, who was speaking at that moment? Was it the devil? Or, I mean, they claim to be filled with Holy Spirit. They claim to be led by the Holy Spirit every time, to an extent. Especially if you are not talking about a baby Christian here, you're talking about someone who has had like over 20 years of experience before he made such statements. 20 years of Christianity, right? So just imagine that kind of statement. And then when you think about the influence that these people have, like this person has like a number, like millions of youths following him internationally. I mean, in Nigeria, you would imagine the kind of consequences of such statements, right? And then years later, they come around and then apologize. Like, who was speaking at that moment when he made that statement? That's just what I want to know, right? How do people rely on the statement that this set of people make, right? And another thing that I want to say is, let's agree that, oh, we made a mistake on that statement, and if it wasn't the Holy Spirit that was talking through him at that point in time, then how long does it take the Holy Spirit to correct him? Why did it take years to tender this apology? Why? How long does it take Holy Spirit to correct his child? You see what I mean? So you begin to think about these things, that these men of God, they just kind of utter this statement from their conventional wisdom. It's not like there's any supernatural being that is like behind their statement. It's not as if someone told them to say this. It's just their conventional wisdom, what they feel like, what they think, their preference in terms of, for instance, um, the general overseer of Deeper Life made some statements like 30 years ago about um, television being the devil's box. He didn't allow his member to watch television, or it was like a sin, right? So my point is, when you make such statement and then come around in 30 years time and then say that's like, those statements are no more valid again, or like it wasn't the Holy Spirit, how do you reconcile that? How can you imagine the amount of followers that you have misled, the number of followers you've misled, the consequences of those statements? So another instance that I want to give is the General Overseer of Celestial Church of God. I think there's the rumor, I don't know if it's confirmed, that it was because uh, the reason why the Celestial members they go into their churches barefooted is just because the General Overseer couldn't had as a big feet or had a big feet and he couldn't find his shoe size. And then because of that, the members adopted that kind of style and then they stopped wearing shoes. So my point is these men of God, they actually have a massive influence on their members. But then if they're uttering statements that are not correct, they are not fact, they are not proofs, imagine how much they mislead their followers every time, right? So how do you rely on such statements? How do you rely on the statements of such people, right? And then I want to also kind of like, by extension, think about the guys who wrote the Bible. At a point in time, they must have, they must have like, you know, put some things in the Bible that are actually like not factual, right? And then nowadays, people are living their existence based on the Bible as if those things are facts. For instance, imagine the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. Imagine he didn't like he was not able to make this apology. Let's just imagine a situation whereby he has already died and he couldn't make this apology, right? I mean, he didn't have a chance to make this apology. So imagine that scenario. Everybody would have thought that, oh, this is what he said before he died, that if you don't pay your tithe, you're not getting into heaven. And then that's final, right? That's exactly what happened with the Bible. Those guys saw something, they wrote their own version of the Bible, what they thought happened. It was written 70 years after Jesus allegedly rose from the dead. And people are living according to this content based on this ancient record. You can imagine a lot of things that are in the Bible that they are not even confirmed, but those guys are not around now to defend it. I mean, imagine if Adeboye were to write his own version of the Bible, or Kumuyi his own version, right? They have different doctrines, right? They have different accounts, right? But then they claim that they're serving the same God. They're going to make the same heaven, but they have different styles, of worship. So these are the reasons why, this is one of the reasons why I'm not convinced of this God. Because if it's one spirit and one God, the doctrine has to align. There's no way you're telling me that you have far apart different doctrines and then you think you are going to make the same heaven. Another thing that I want to talk about is when these guys makes these statements and the Holy Spirit is supposed to correct them immediately. Okay, let's say now, why is the Holy Spirit silent, or why is God silent when his representatives, when they mislead a lot of people in his name? You know, so many people, when in my conversations with them, they say that, oh, religion doesn't have a problem. It is the men who practice religion that use religion as a tool. So my question is, when the servants of God, when people do stuffs in the name of God, why is God silent? I mean, there are levels to this stuff, like levels like when priests rape children, right? When pastors scam members, right? When these are great atrocities that there's no way, if these things are perpetrated in your name, there's no way you should be silent. This is why I'm not convinced about this religion, right? And what I'm saying in essence is you need to be able to understand your own worldview. If you don't have a worldview, if you cannot explain your own worldview, someone else will impose their own worldview on you. And then what does that mean? That means you are living someone else's life, you are living someone else's truth. You know, I think this is what I just want to say about this topic, that these men of God, you can't rely on their statements. You have to think for yourself, and otherwise, you're just living someone else's life. All right. Um, this is what I want to talk about. And if you have contrary opinions, you know what to do. Send in your comments. I'm not all perfect, and we can talk about it. Right. See you in the next video.